Travis Wingitzel. In high school, down in Southern California, Norco High, which, yes, was on the news the other week, having the hottest temperature on record, over 120 degrees. Glad I left. I've told you previously that I sloughed through school because of Mrs. Fiskin in 5th grade giving me an F for working hard on a report on Idaho. But for some reason, I wanted to take a physics class. And it was an elective. Chemistry was my choice for the core requirement rather than human biology. And for physics, he made it fun, obviously. He was a little creepy with the teenage girls. But he pulled a lot of stunts. You know, like lying on a bed of nails, I guess so he can take off his shirt. And putting stuff on the upper beam in the hallway outside the class, and then asking who saw it. Nobody does, because everybody looks down. Because if you look at somebody, then they're going to kill you. You looking at me? And he taught us to fill out our assignments, all laid out with the math formula, the physics formula, and have things boxed and all nice and neat. Different from a medical doctor, who only the secretaries know the signature. And Mason and I were assigned together to work on our physics assignment. And Mason thought, well, we'll do it on bubbles, glycerin bubbles, and we'll film it as we're lounging on some poolside chairs, and we'll get a couple of the high school girls to play in the pool behind us. That never turned out, but we did do it on glycerin bubbles rather than on quantum mechanics, as the teacher tried to get us to do. And I had only been aware of that because of Quantum Leap. And there was a lot of things that I learned from physics. Force equals mass times acceleration, which I later used as an argument in a contesting of a ticket from a police officer, and everybody was confused as to what that was. What do you mean the pothole accelerates the vehicle? And then the police officer then has his camera that stops once the speed just happens to dip the 3 miles over the speed limit to pull you over for a ticket. When the judge said, you need to be a little more laxed on the amount of speed over the speed limit, he recommended 4. I still had to pay $80 rather than 100 billion or whatever it was. And then soon thereafter they fixed that pothole. But A body in motion stays in motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that does not include human, the human factor, the human equation. That's only for inanimate objects. Because once you get humans involved, the laws of physics take on a whole complicated string of actions and reactions from conception. As everybody experiences a different life experience. The way they sense things, the way they experience things, the way life responds to them, and they interpret the response, it's different for everybody. And so the laws of physics are not just as simple as a little formula. It's a whole string of formula that if you don't know every single detail of everybody's life, you're going to miss it. And so when Clayton was just a little 1-year-old, joining me on the couch watching The Simpsons, one day he had something in his hand, dropped it between the couch cushion, and I noticed that he dropped something, so I looked over to see what it was. He looked over to see what it was. We bumped heads. Now, knowing that when a child has their head bumped, there's the likely reaction of crying, I immediately reacted with, oh, 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 oh. Clayton thought that was hilarious. And so it was either the next day or 2 days later, we're again on the couch together. He then stands up on the couch and then headbutts me. And I'm going, what the? Oh, right. You thought it was funny when we hurt each other. I'm teaching him all about S&M, I guess. And so, yeah, it was a situation where I had to let him know that, no, it was funny because it was an accident, but you don't need to cause pain in order to laugh and remember the good times. And then, of course, again, we were sitting on the couch one day watching The Simpsons, in the episode where Homer Simpson falls down the stairs. Bonk, bonk, bonk. And he's going, oh, ooh, oh, ooh. Clayton busts up laughing. He finds that hilarious because we've already bonded over bunking on our heads. And so he's busting up laughing. Well, lo and behold, in comes Mother. Sees that we're watching Simpsons, sees her 1-year-old son busting up laughing. Oh, that's just Simpson, turn this off. She had a different life experience so that she did not understand our shared life experience. And then, as a result, altered our experiences from then on out. Same situation when Melissa and Clayton were hanging out a lot. That's what they do. They were the only 2 kids at the time. And Stephanie was crocheting in her chair. I was sitting watching TV of some kind, some show or whatever, that she was also sort of watching. And I see the kids come from out of the kitchen, and they're dusting. Great. Wow, cool. Okay, didn't even have to ask them. They're just dusting. And then Stephanie sees that they're dusting, and then sees what they're dusting with. No! They were using her grandmother's doilies to dust. And because she freaked out as her response to them dusting with her grandmother's doilies, the kids were like scared for their lives, never dusted again. And so, yes, when dealing with human behavior, the laws of physics are way too complicated, because there's no way one person can enter into another person's life and know exactly how to respond and act in front of them. And I learned this as a kid, as each teacher was completely different on how they ran their class, and so I had to adjust myself to try to figure out the best way to work within the teacher's parameters. And I was pretty good at it, I guess, because I was an A student, despite Mrs. Fiskin. And but it's a very complicated situation, especially when Mormons marry early, and they marry within just a couple of weeks of meeting somebody. And they read, pondered, and prayed about the girl and got an answer, and so it's therefore true that they should marry them. And then marriage, they find out they're not the same, and then they go through a faith crisis. They turned evil. That's what it was. She was the right one when I married her, and then she turned evil. And vice versa. But the Mormon theology is not the Christian Trinity God of Constantine, Homoousius. The Mormon God is a physical being. They're separate personages, they have physical bodies, they're just exalted like suns in the sky, which is the hydrogen dominant atom. But don't tell that to a nuclear physicist. He will freak out. He'll turn beet red with anger. That violates the laws of physics. I was a nuclear physicist. That's just false. I was just saying that was what the Egyptians believed. I was trying to socialize with you guys as we're in this committee for the church together, doing footnotes, remember, for other people. I want you off the team. Sorry, I've got a gold pass from Gordon B. Hinckley himself. You can't touch me. But that's what makes Mormon theology completely different than Christian theology. And Mormons just don't understand that. Old school Mormons, like Irene's father, he understood that, though he still had problems understanding the real science that is taught in schools. But I'm going to have to pause for a minute here. But once you have a physical God, the God now must conform to the laws of physics. Now granted, they're human, so there's a whole chain of physics laws that need to be plugged into the equation, which there's just no way to know it, ever. Just like I can't know you guys, ever. As much as I'm desperately trying different ways to break through to you guys, I can never know you guys, why you do what you do, why you attack me for defending Mormonism of Joseph Smith, why you guys attack me for showing, hey, Joseph Smith was a translator, hey, Joseph Smith wasn't a polygamist after all, hey, Joseph's temple was just washing and anointings, hey, and I can never fully understand and figure out how to get through to Mormons as a result. And I'm about to have to go take a pause here, so hold on. Seriously? Alrighty. So, when understanding deities of different religions, for other religions, it's just a matter of memorization, because there's no way to actually come to know the actual nature and character, because there is none, unless you go into the pagan religions, as they're anthropomorphized. But the Mormon theology, people can actually put our theology to the test by applying the laws of physics. So, are they able to travel in a pillar of light from outer space and appear through the walls and the ceiling to enter into a boy's room, where apparently all his siblings were gone? If you've ever seen the blueprints of the home, that would make you wonder, where did his siblings sleep? If his parents were in that room, only Joseph was in this other room? Where did the other kids sleep? And, and why was he able to sleep on the edge of the bed and not in between, and not disturb the ones on the edges of the bed? Or was Moroni at the foot of the bed, not at the side of the bed? And we don't want to read the Joseph Smith papers, because then it's Nephi and not Moroni. See, there's laws of physics that are now involved. Because the theology involves a physical being. And that makes for a far more fascinating and interesting concept, as we have space doctrine with Klingon Skousen, which he doesn't really talk about space doctrine as much as it's just his nickname for talking about far out there stuff. But You need to think about that, Mormons. You can't just say, oh, this is our theology and you have to accept it. It doesn't work that way. Because there are now laws of the universe that are at play. And it's very kind of crucial, especially when you're dealing with other scientific studies, such as linguistics, to identify plagiarism in a certain book, and other sort of key things that science can sort of change the viewpoint of what really happened with Mormon theology, Mormon doctrine, Mormon history, etc., etc. And I can assure Mormons, everything's fine, nothing to fear, unless you support Brigham Young and everybody sends him. Then you're not going to be happy. Then you're going to want to fear. Then you're not going to believe me. And you're going to be like a QAnon follower, a puppet to the lies.